How safe is the pill you swallow every morning? The one that's supposed to keep your heart beating, not stop it. In the past few months alone, the FDA has pulled 6 major heart and blood pressure medications off shelves across America after uncovering cancer-causing impurities, toxic contaminants, and even pills that weren't what their labels claimed to be. That's not an accident. That's a pattern. And it's spreading faster than anyone wants to admit. Nearly half of all U.S. prescription drugs now come from overseas plants with a history of safety violations. If the medicine cabinet in your home feels like a place of comfort, maybe it's time to look again, because some of those bottles could be time bombs hiding in plain sight. Tonight, we're breaking down the recalls that Big Pharma hopes you'll ignore and exposing how the drugs meant to protect your life could be quietly threatening it instead. This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. Let's begin. Number 1. Lupin Pharmaceuticals. It begins like a cruel joke, the kind you'd never laugh at. A blood pressure pill, lisinopril with hydrochlorothiazide, meant to protect fragile hearts, found tainted with a stranger, a tablet of HIV medication. Over 58,968 bottles from Lupin Pharmaceuticals, an Indian drug maker that's quietly flooded American shelves for years, were yanked off the market after the discovery. The FDA called it a Class 2 recall, a term that sounds as dull as a tax form until you realize it translates to, we think it won't kill you, probably. Somewhere between December 2024 and January 2025, those bottles were shipped into pharmacies across the country, waiting for trembling hands to twist their caps open. And suddenly, every medicine cabinet in America started to look less like a place of healing and more like Russian roulette with a pharmacy label. The company swore no patient actually swallowed the wrong pill. But does that really calm anyone who's lived long enough to know that corporations lie smoother than a politician before Election Day? This isn't Lupin's first stain. Far from it. In the last decade, the FDA sent warning letters like unpaid bills to Lupin's factories in Goa, Indore, and Maharashtra. Inspectors found ignored contamination reports, broken machinery logged more than 1,695 times, and records so sloppy you'd think they were written on cocktail napkins. When your blood pressure drug is made in a plant where no one bothers to investigate why machines keep failing, that's not healthcare. That's gambling in a lab coat. But the real scandal isn't just inside Lupin's walls. It's the system that built those walls. America's obsession with outsourcing its most intimate lifeline to the cheapest bidder. Every time you refill a prescription stamped Made in India or Product of China, you're trusting regulators oceans away to care about your heart more than their quarterly profits. And when those factories cut corners, it's not their families who end up in the ER, it's ours. The elderly man in Kansas who worked 40 years at a steel mill. The widow in Alabama stretching her pension to afford her meds. These are the quiet casualties of corporate globalization, the people no one tweets about. Lupin's defenders say the contamination was caught in time. Yet the same defense has been repeated after every recall, like a broken record spinning on taxpayer-funded turntables. No harm done, they say, but the harm is cumulative, a drip-drip erosion of trust until one day, no American believes the pill in their hand is what it claims to be. The foreign tablet in that bottle isn't just a mix-up, it's a mirror reflecting the rot of a system that treats the sick as supply chain statistics. So what now? Experts urge Americans not to surrender their health to blind faith in pill bottles. Rebuilding strength doesn't always come from a capsule. Doctors recommend cutting sodium, walking 30 minutes a day, sleeping 7 full hours, and filling your plate with potassium-rich foods like bananas, spinach, and sweet potatoes. Nature's blood pressure regulators that never needed a factory label. Maybe the lesson here isn't just about Lupin's negligence, but about reclaiming control from an industry that's forgotten what healing means. Because in a world where medicine can betray you, sometimes the safest cure begins with what you grow, cook, and breathe for yourself. Number 2, Aurobindo Pharma USA. If medicine is supposed to heal, why does it sometimes come with a side of fear? On the final day of 2018, while Americans were counting down to midnight, Aurobindo Pharma USA quietly dropped a bombshell of its own. a nationwide recall of 80 lots of blood pressure and heart drugs containing valsartan, amlodipine, valsartan, and valsartan, HCTZ. The reason? Traces of N-nitrosodiethylamine, or NDEA, a chemical so sinister it's been classified by the World Health Organization as a probable human carcinogen. It wasn't a bug or a bad batch. It was poison dressed as medicine. Within 2 months, another 38 lots were added to the recall list after levels of this toxin exceeded even the FDA's interim acceptable limit. Translation: your heart medicine might have been giving you cancer. The company claimed no patients had yet reported adverse reactions. But that line felt like the corporate version of, "Don't worry, it's only a little arsenic." For millions relying on these drugs, the damage wasn't just chemical, it was psychological. Suddenly, what they trusted to protect them became something to fear. And in the panic that followed, pharmacy shelves emptied, doctors scrambled to rewrite prescriptions, and headlines warned of shortages across North America and Europe. People dependent on these pills, retirees, truck drivers, factory workers, found themselves wondering if skipping a dose might kill them faster than taking it. But the rot at Aurobindo ran deeper than tainted pills. This wasn't an unlucky mistake. It was the byproduct of a system that treats drug safety like a cost-cutting exercise. The FDA had already flagged Aurobindo's manufacturing plant in Andhra Pradesh for significant deviations from safety practices. A diplomatic way of saying the factory's quality control was about as reliable as a broken smoke alarm. Then came lawsuits from U.S. states accusing the company of price fixing in the generic drug market, proving that even in the business of healing hearts, greed has the loudest pulse. And just when the public began to forget, the Washington Times reignited the alarm in 2024, revealing how Aurobindo's global supply chain remained riddled with safety and quality issues, many linked to unregulated overseas plants. It was like discovering your trusted mechanic had been swapping your car's engine oil with fryer grease for years. The consequences reach far beyond Aurobindo's walls. These recurring recalls expose how much of America's medicine is born in factories halfway around the world, shielded by bureaucracy and greed. Each recall is a warning that the invisible thread tying our health to these corporations is fraying. And yet, amidst the chaos, the real tragedy is quieter: the erosion of faith. When patients start checking their pill bottles like crime scenes, you know something's broken beyond repair. Still, the lesson here isn't just about corporate failure. It's about self-defense in a poison system. Cardiologists remind us that not every path to heart health is bottled. Reducing processed foods, staying hydrated, walking at least 30 minutes a day, managing stress through deep breathing, and maintaining a consistent sleep cycle can all help lower blood pressure naturally. Think of it as reclaiming power, swapping dependency for discipline. Maybe it's time we stop waiting for corporations to clean their conscience and start cleaning our own lives instead. After all, the only recall you can truly trust is the one your body makes when it finally remembers what health is supposed to feel like. Number 3, Ascend Laboratories. You'd think a pill made to steady your heartbeat would be the one thing you could rely on. But earlier this year, Ascend Laboratories, the New Jersey-based company behind metoprolol succinate extended-release tablets, turned that belief into another bitter reminder of how fragile trust has become. The FDA quietly classified Ascend's recall as Class 2, a sterile label for something terrifying. The pills weren't dissolving as they should. Translation? The drug meant to release slowly over hours might dump too much medicine too fast, or, worse, not release enough at all. For patients managing heart failure or high blood pressure, that's like trusting your parachute to open most of the time. The defective batches, marked with codes like NDC 67877, 01, and 67877-0101, were recalled after failing stability tests showing out-of-specification results. In plain English, the pills were unpredictable. They could hit the bloodstream too weakly to be effective or too irregularly to be safe. And when it comes to metoprolol, inconsistency kills. It doesn't just make you lightheaded, it can throw your pulse into chaos, send blood pressure plummeting, or even trigger cardiac relapse. The company insisted it was acting out of caution. But for millions who depend on these tablets daily, that's like saying the brakes mostly work. And Ascend's dirty history doesn't help its case. Back in 2014, federal inspectors caught the company distributing unapproved drugs out of an Ohio warehouse. Over $11 million worth of products the FDA never cleared. They were ordered to destroy the stock and post a $6.5 million bond just to keep operating. Then in 2015, they quietly settled with the U.S. Inspector General's office for $1.2 million after failing to report accurate pricing data to Medicare and Medicaid. In short, while the public thought Ascend was managing heart medicine, the company was playing accounting gymnastics with taxpayers' money. Even years later, the warnings didn't stop. The FDA flagged significant data integrity issues, pointing to sloppy documentation and overseas manufacturing links that raised red flags about quality control. Think about it. If your mechanic kept losing your brake test results, would you still let him fix your car? Yet here we are, swallowing pills from factories that can't even keep their paperwork straight. The problem isn't just one batch. It's a mindset where compliance is optional and profit is the real prescription. Experts say recalls like this expose how brittle America's generic drug market really is. A house built on imported APIs, paper promises, and wishful thinking. But there's another way to protect your heart that doesn't depend on fragile supply chains. Cardiologists recommend staying hydrated, cutting down caffeine and alcohol, and walking briskly after meals to strengthen circulation. Foods rich in magnesium and omega-3 fats, salmon, avocados, almonds, flaxseed, help regulate heart rhythm naturally. It sounds almost old-fashioned, but maybe that's the point. Nature doesn't need a recall label. In the end, what this episode really dissolves isn't just medicine. It's our illusion that someone else is watching over our health. Number 4, Teva Pharmaceuticals USA. The pills were supposed to keep hearts beating strong, but in Teva's case, they carried a whisper of poison. Between 2018 and 2019, the FDA forced Teva Pharmaceuticals USA, one of the biggest drug manufacturers on the planet, to recall millions of bottles of its blood pressure medicine, losartan potassium, after uncovering cancer-linked nitrosamine impurities. What started as a minor, precautionary recall soon exploded into one of the largest cleanups in modern pharmaceutical history. The agency found that tablets from Teva, including both pure losartan and its combinations with hydrochlorothiazide, contain chemicals with names so technical they sound harmless until you realize they're in the same category as the stuff used in rocket fuel: NDMA, NDEA, and NMBA. These aren't typos. They're silent killers disguised in the daily pills sitting beside your morning coffee. Teva's defense was almost rehearsed. The health risk is minimal, but that's cold comfort to anyone who has swallowed those pills every day for years. The FDA calculated that long-term exposure, 70 years of taking acceptable doses, might raise cancer risk by 1 in 100,000. Yet millions of Americans didn't take acceptable doses. They took whatever came from their pharmacy, trusting a name that has dominated the generic market for decades. Each recall notice felt like a small betrayal. For seniors on fixed incomes, switching drugs mid-treatment wasn't just confusing, it was terrifying. The medicine aisle turned into a minefield, and no one knew which bottle would be next to explode. What makes this story darker is Teva's reputation. Not a rogue company, but a corporate colossus that built an empire on the promise of affordable access. Yet that affordability came at a price measured not in dollars but in risk. The contamination likely began with cheap active ingredients from overseas suppliers using recycled solvents and untested reactions, shortcuts that save pennies and gamble with lives. Even as the recalls rippled across the US and Europe, Teva kept expanding operations in Russia, ignoring global sanctions and moral outrage. As one report dryly noted, Teva continues normal business operations in Russia. It's hard to preach corporate ethics while shipping heart pills from a supply chain that can't pass a purity test. The fallout was staggering. Pharmacies ran dry, doctors scrambled to rewrite prescriptions, and the most vulnerable patients, retirees, veterans, and low-income families, were left rationing pills or skipping doses altogether. Time magazine reported marked shortages of life-saving medications in North America. But the shortage wasn't just of pills, it was of accountability. Teva's image of reliability cracked open like a pill capsule, revealing not medicine but a moral void. And yet, in the wreckage of this trust, health experts remind Americans that while medicine can fail, the body still holds power to heal. Small changes, cutting down processed foods, staying hydrated, moving daily, and keeping stress in check, strengthen the heart more honestly than any pill ever could. Foods rich in antioxidants like blueberries, green tea, and dark leafy vegetables help detoxify nitrosamines naturally. Maybe the bitterest irony of Teva's scandal is this: the same chemical chaos they introduced can be fought by the simplest habits we've long ignored. When corporations gamble with our health, perhaps the quietest rebellion is taking it back. One walk, one home-cooked meal, one clean breath at a time. Number 5. Accord Healthcare Inc. Sometimes danger hides not in what's missing from a pill, but in what shouldn't be there at all. In August 2018, Accord Healthcare, a U.S. branch of India's Intaz Pharmaceuticals, issued a nationwide recall of its hydrochlorothiazide, 12.5 ml tablets, after a pharmacist cracked open a sealed bottle and found something that didn't belong: 100 pills of spironolactone, a completely different heart drug. On paper, that might sound like a clerical mix-up. In real life, it's a potential death sentence. Spironolactone affects potassium levels. Hydrochlorothiazide lowers them. One does the opposite of the other. A heart patient taking the wrong one could collapse within days, not knowing the danger came neatly sealed by a factory that promised safety. The FDA's statement was chillingly polite. A voluntary recall. Translation: a mistake big enough to scare every pharmacist in America, but small enough for the company to act like it's no big deal. According to reports, roughly 46,600 bottles were affected, not counting the fear that spread much further. Hydrochlorothiazide is one of the most prescribed blood pressure medications in the country, a staple for seniors and retirees who trust their daily dose the way others trust the sunrise. That trust shattered overnight. Time magazine called it a potentially life-threatening drug mix-up, and it's hard to think of a more terrifying phrase for anyone who's ever lined up their weekly pill box on the kitchen counter. And yet, for Accord, this was just another stain on a smudge record. Its parent company, Intaz Pharmaceuticals, has been repeatedly flagged for appalling manufacturing conditions. Inspectors at one facility found metal shavings on production equipment, blackened vials from contamination, and workers destroying paperwork before audits. ProPublica described these sites as factories that look clean only on camera. Even more disturbing, Accord's name surfaced in the United Kingdom when regulators recalled valsartan products tainted with NDMA, a probable carcinogen. It seems everywhere the company goes, safety leaves through the back door. So how does a company like this stay in business? Because the system rewards speed and low cost, not integrity. Generic drug contracts are won by the penny, and oversight moves slower than profit. By the time regulators catch up, millions of pills have already crossed oceans and entered American medicine cabinets. And while the companies pay small fines, it's the patients, the retirees, the veterans, the low-income workers, who pay the ultimate price in trust and health. Still, there's a kind of quiet power in knowing that vigilance can save lives. Pharmacists recommend always checking your pills, color, imprint, shape, before taking them. Doctors urge maintaining a steady blood pressure naturally through a low-sodium diet, daily movement, and foods rich in potassium and fiber like bananas, lentils, and leafy greens. Cardiologists say even 10 minutes of walking twice a day can reduce hypertension as effectively as medication for some patients. The message is sobering yet empowering. The most dependable pharmacy may not be the one behind the counter, but the one inside your own kitchen. Accord's mistake was monumental, but maybe it's also a wake-up call to stop assuming that the bottle knows better than the body. Number 6. Glenmark Pharmaceuticals. By the time the headlines broke in August 2025, Americans had grown weary of hearing the same story in different bottles. Another recall, another heart drug, another corporate apology wrapped in medical jargon. This time it was Glenmark Pharmaceuticals, an Indian giant with offices in New Jersey, whose carvedilol tablets, prescribed to steady failing hearts and control blood pressure, were found laced with nitrosamine impurities beyond FDA's safety limits. The contaminant, blandly named N-nitrosocarvedilol impurity 1, NNCI, sounds like something out of a chemistry textbook, but its danger is anything but academic. Nitrosamines are the same cancer-linked chemicals found in industrial solvents and tainted meat processing runoff. And now they were inside tablets meant for the weak and elderly. Glenmark's recall wasn't a one-off event. It was 5 separate voluntary recalls over just 2 days, August 6th and 7th, totaling more than 88,000 bottles of carvedilol yanked from pharmacies nationwide. Behind the euphemistic word voluntary hid a truth everyone in the industry knows. It's only voluntary when you get caught. Reports from California's Board of Pharmacy confirmed that these batches exceeded the FDA's acceptable intake level for nitrosamines, the same class of carcinogens that has haunted the global drug supply for nearly a decade. The company, of course, claimed no patients had yet reported side effects. But that's like saying, no one's drowned yet, while the ship is still taking on water. For Glenmark, the rot wasn't new, just freshly exposed. The company's track record reads like a slow-motion train wreck. The FDA hit them with a warning letter in October 2019 for serious manufacturing violations at a plant in Himachal Pradesh. 3 years. Later, another letter arrived for their Goa facility, noting the plant lacked procedures to verify strength, quality, and purity. In plain language, they couldn't prove their drugs were what they claimed. Then came 2025, and yet another report citing problems with cleaning and drug testing at yet another site in Madhya Pradesh. This wasn't negligence, it was a business model. As one U.S. law firm bluntly stated, Glenmark has been forced to recall tens of millions of carvedilol pills contaminated with carcinogens, yet continues to manufacture and sell defective drugs. If trust were a dosage, Glenmark would have overdosed long ago. The nightmare here isn't just chemical, it's systemic. Glenmark's recalls are a symptom of a global industry that treats safety warnings like parking tickets. Inconvenient, but affordable. And while executives issue sterile statements from glass offices, the people who suffer most are retirees counting out pills beside their morning coffee. For them, foreign impurities aren't lab terms. They're fears wrapped in plastic. The quiet dread that the pills saving their heart today might poison it tomorrow. Yet experts say patients still have tools to fight back, starting with vigilance. Doctors urge anyone taking carvedilol to check the label for Glenmark, compare pill imprints, and contact their pharmacist if anything seems off. But beyond the label, cardiologists emphasize rebuilding heart strength the way nature intended, through diet, movement, and rest. Cutting back on processed meats and fried foods, both rich in nitrates, helps reduce carcinogen exposure. A Mediterranean-style diet, rich in olive oil, nuts, and green vegetables, lowers blood pressure naturally. Gentle activities like yoga, deep breathing, and 30-minute walks help the heart recover its rhythm, the kind of purity no pill can counterfeit. In the end, Glenmark's carvedilol scandal isn't just about contamination, it's about corrosion, the slow decay of trust in a system where corporations gamble with lives like poker chips. Maybe the next recall won't involve a chemical, maybe it'll involve something rarer, integrity. But until then, Americans may have to keep doing what Glenmark's factories never did. Clean up, check carefully, and protect what keeps them alive. When you step back and look at all these recalls, from Lupin's deadly mix-up to Glenmark's cancer-linked pills, a chilling pattern emerges. The very medicines meant to keep us alive have been quietly poisoning our trust. America's drug shelves, once symbols of safety, now look more like ticking time bombs lined up in amber bottles. Each recall is not just a corporate failure, it's a warning about how fragile the system protecting our health has become. But we still have power. The power to question, to verify, to refuse blind faith in billion-dollar labels. Protecting your heart isn't just about the pill in your hand. It's about demanding accountability from the hands that make it. If this video opened your eyes, don't let the truth fade when the screen goes dark. Subscribe to the Downturn Report, where we pull back the curtain on what others won't show you. The hidden recalls, the quiet scandals, the stories that affect your body, your home, and your future. Because in a world that profits from silence, knowledge is resistance. And here the truth doesn't just get told, the truth gets personal.
Thank you for watching today's video all the way through. If you found the content helpful, don't forget to click like and subscribe to stay updated to our latest daily videos. Now feel free to check out other feature videos currently shown on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.